Your isometric drawing should be scanned and available on Compass. It will be a compressed file which will have everyone's scan within it. So you'll have to uncompress it, download it, decompress it, and find your design. Now what we're going to do is render it in Photoshop. So this is a simple scan design from previous years, and we're going to render that in. So Photoshop's just been updated to CC. It will be available if it won't be on the bottom dock, so therefore you'll have to open it in Macintosh, Applications, and find the location there, open it up. It'll appear like this, only a few changes, and being sort of new to Photoshop, very similar layout to Illustrator with the toolbar down the left, the Options tab along the top, and the palettes down the left hand side. Big difference is this layer palette, which you'll use greatly. That's what gives Photoshop its power and its flexibility. So what we're going to do first is open a new document. So File, New, Clipboard to International Paper. We'll call it Clock Design. Change the orientation accordingly. So this is going to be a portrait as it's a tall design. Resolution 150 will be fine. That will be able to scale up and still won't pixelate. We'll change the background to transparent, and that will be okay. So that's our new document there. With the appearance, with the pattern, that's just to indicate that it's transparent and it's not a white background. It won't actually print out this way. Now what we need to do is import your design. So go select File and select Place Embedded. Find your design, place that, and at the moment it's in sort of a preview mode, so you can scale it, so on and so forth, and just press return when you're happy with it. And what we're going to quickly do is, sometimes when it's going to come in as a layer, it may have this little icon here, and that's telling us, if I hover over it, it's telling us it's a smart object, as it just showed there. Just double click on the name, sorry, not double click, control click on the name and rasterize that layer. If it's a smart layer, you can't alter it greatly, so you'll need to rasterize the layer. Now what we're going to do is just remove any imperfections with the isometric drawing. A lot of grey lead or pen or any smudges especially come from the set square. We can now go through and quickly remove with the Band-Aid, so the spot healing tool, and just change the size using the brackets or the size up here, and so it's just going to sample around it and then delete anything need be. That should be all you're really going to need to have to do. And you can also go Image, Auto Tone, which will make it just slightly darker. Auto Contrast does the same thing, just makes the blacks a little bit blacker. And get rid of or enclose any areas that there might be issues in filling. Whereas I can see one here, so this will fill, but it's going to bleed down and fill in here if we just drop in a colour, so you need to close off that little area. That's why it's a lot easier to do it with a pen initially. That's the only one I can really see there. When we select things later, they might appear to be others as well. Now what we're going to do is bring in the textures. Your drawing needs to have different, sort of two different textures, if that's wood, if that's concrete, if it's in this case is going to be brushed aluminium, and it needs to be fully rendered to give a visual representation of what the intended design is. If you are proposing it to a design firm, they've got to be able to understand what materials and all the little different components of the design. And that's what an isometric drawing is. So what we're going to do is bring in some different textures. So I've got a brushed aluminium here. So when you search, just go to Image, Search Tools, change it to medium or large, and type in seamless seamless, whatever texture you want. So brush metal in this case. It's going to be best of these ones are going to be really good because it's nice flat colour, whereas this one here might not be quite as good if you want to tile it in terms of, you know, paste this in and then paste another tile and another tile and another tile. Because it hasn't got that flat colour, it's not going to have that that consistency over it. It's going to be able to be obvious that they are tiles. Whoops. View the image as a whole. Control, click, copy image, back into Photoshop, and paste that in. It's going to be quite large. As you can see, it's created as a new layer, which we can turn on and off. We can change all its sort of basic characteristics. First of all, we're going to scale it down to the size we want it to be. Shortcut is Command T. And hold Shift and drag it so it keeps its proportions. And what we need to do now is rotate it, but first of all I might change the opacity so it's a little bit more translucent. Zoom in, zooming is the same, so Command plus and minus, and I will rotate it to the angle, to one of those angles, so if it's either the 30 degree or the 150 degree. And so we're going to obviously place it on this top section here. At the moment that angle is correct, but this angle here needs to be aligned with that there. So we need to skew it a little bit. Just hit return with that layer still selected. We're now going to skew it, so edit, and you can go down to transform. Free transform is going to give you the flexibility of what I had before, so that's Command T. Transform, we can do a little bit more in terms of skewing it. I'll zoom out a little bit, and we're going to skew it by, we should be able to change this. And you have to play around with it a little bit until both those lines are aligned. Should be able to move it forward. Here we go. So you're going to really need to concentrate getting these angles right. It takes a little bit of time playing around with those edge areas. I feel that's looking pretty good. Don't worry too much about the scale at the moment, but that looks pretty good. And so I can just Command T, Shift, drag that out. And it's not perfect, but for a quick display it's going to be pretty good. It's going to be best if it overhangs, and that's going to be set there. Now what we're going to do is select the area. We're going to have to tell Photoshop, okay, what we want to keep and what we want to remove. So the Marvelous Magic Wand is going to be the best fit for this. So if you select the Magic Wand, oops, I've selected the wrong layer now. On the background layer, select the area that we want to keep, and if you hold Shift it'll show a plus, if you hold Alt it'll show a minus. So we want to select also in that area, in that area, in that area, and we don't really want certain areas. Now at the moment we've got that area selected, so if we press delete it's going to delete. Sorry, if we select on layer 1, delete, it's going to delete exactly what we want. So we want the opposite. So up the top you'll have select, drop down to inverse. That's going to select everything other than what we want. So therefore press delete on the layer 1, and then that's going to delete that surrounding area within there. We should be able to also use the eraser. Why is it deselected all that area? I'll quickly clean this up. Just go select deselect, and otherwise you can use the eraser and very carefully go through and remove those other areas. Oops. That's why I suggest using a selection and make sure you get the correct layers, because you can make mistakes. Now with Photoshop, if you do make a mistake, there's not unlimited undos. So at the moment if I go undo, Command X, it's just going to undo that area. And you only get one undo. The other option to go is edit and then undo. The other option is you've got a histories tab here, and so that therefore you can go back and undo several, so you can go through the stages. The shortcut for multiple undos is Command Shift X. Sorry, Command Alt X, rather than using the history tab. Now what we want to do is bring in that same texture, place it there, then we'll place it there, we'll darken it off, and we can fill other areas. Just quickly remove that front area. If I just Command V again, it should bring another example of a texture. Command T, scale it to what we want. Place it where we want. Drop the opacity. And you want roughly the size that you had the other one, so they all align. And then we will go through the same process. So transform, skew that, and we'll skew it down. This one's going to be a bit easier. There we go. Place that where we want it. Return. We will change these, their opacity back up. And so once again, select the underlying layer, use the magic wand. Using the magic wand, select the area that we want to keep. So we want that area, we want that area, we want that area. Holding Shift, I can add multiple. Put that one in. No, I actually don't want that one. I'll remove that later. Select inverse on the layer that we want to delete it from. Select that. Select, deselect, Command D, and therefore there's layer 2. Bring up the opacity. Now what we want to have is this metal texture looking like it wraps around a little bit. So if we're saying the light's coming in this direction, therefore that's going to be darker. So on layer 2, you can use the burn tool is going to be best, so the little hand. Make the brush much larger and gradually go through, and we'll burn it a little bit. That might be a bit too much. And therefore you can continue. So do the remaining side here, paste it in, rotate it, skew it, burn it. these areas here you can do the same thing, and these areas, so bring in the textures. Now bringing in colours, we can simply drop colours in or gradients. So dropping in a colour, you're going to need to tell Photoshop where we want to drop the colour in. So if we select within this column, whoops, make sure you select on the correct layer, select in there, double click a colour that we prefer, and therefore you're just going to drop a column of blue column. However, it doesn't have the three-dimensional aspect of the sort of the cylinder. We want to have it appear probably darker on the running down the left-hand side and the right-hand side, so it looks like it wraps around. So we'll just quickly undo that. And what we're going to do is fill it with a gradient. With the final design, as we've got here, we don't want to fill it all the way to the tops. So the other selection tools are, the magic one is going to select a whole area. The one above it, the lasso, is a freehand one. So same thing, if I hold Alt, I can select an area that I want to deselect, wrap around, and that's going to subtract from. If I hold Shift, it's going to add to. And the other selection tools are Polygon, deals with straight edges, and magnetic lasso is going to be able to detect the outside line. So it works on where a distinctive line is, it will be able to detect that and make it a bit quicker. Now what we're going to do is drop in a gradient instead. Rather than creating the gradient on the final layer, create it on a new layer, because then we can simply turn it on, turn it off, change the opacity, scale it really easily. If you do it on the original, the master layer, therefore you're sort of stuck with it. Up the top here, you should be able to double click in here. That's already got quite a nice colour in it. Double click in here and select your colours that you want, and the centre colour there. And they can slide along, and this can change in terms of where it transfers. The top area, that's going to change the opacity, that top little swatch, and just select OK. If you're going to be using multiple times, you can save it. You've also got the options of linear gradient, radial, angle, sort of reflected gradient, which would actually be quite good in this option. And then using the gradient tool, selecting where we want to start to where we want to finish. So that looks quite good. Or it can extend on out beyond it. In this case, probably there's, oops, not quite right. There's not bad. So play around until you're happy with it. That's not too bad there. And then, okay, at the moment selected, so I need to deselect that. And we can add lasso tool, zoom in, and the top we want it to be, it's not quite right, but it's pretty good. Another gradient, so it can be gradients on top of gradients. You can place it on another layer if you wish. I'm going to quickly just create it on this one and make it quick. And deselect that, so it is going to appear that it's not quite right, that it looks flat. You can also go through and burn layers. You can change the opacity to the layers. You can turn these on and off. You can change the orientation of them, so having them underneath, which that's just going to totally disappear. What else do we need to go over? I think that's pretty much it. Just showing you the final design. You know, a gradient's been included here. Simple drop colours or textures within there. Obviously we do want at least 2 textures, as is shown there, and then the rest of it's being created using gradients, which gives a lovely 3-dimensional appearance. He's also included the name of the clock, which is a great idea. Thanks.